Hi there, and thank you for clicking on my video. We're going to be talking about bullet hose weapons today, and going to be talking about a twin gakata build, and also armor strip in general. How to armor strip, but not fully, sort of the math behind it, and why you would particularly want to do it um, over a full strip, the benefits of it, and ultimately that comes down to what your damage source is. So let's get to it. I've been using Caliban recently because he has a very, very, very nice strip. Um, his 4 at 200% completely strips the armor and shields of all enemies that are in the AoE that this puts out. Um, I'm a big fan of this because with one mod, you can get 99% armor strip on it and a 99% shield strip. Obviously, shields will regen, the armor will not, obviously. And if you want to completely strip, you have the option of throwing more power strength somewhere else in the build. So for this guy, I've been using him a lot because the AoE that strips lingers, right? So it's from here, 33 meters. That's not bad. And as long as it's sitting there for 23 seconds, which is what my current duration gives, any enemy that either gets pulled into it or walks into it will be stripped by 99%. With this, there's some pretty interesting synergies with, say, like a Saren. Caliban is becoming one of my more favorite support frames. He's a little energy heavy, but you can modify it to where you're only doing like a 60-70% strip, and you can make the energy consumption way nicer. But like a Vauban, for example, you go a much smaller range, so where it only encompasses what's over the vortex, and you just cast it on the vortex basically, and everything that's getting sucked into it immediately gets full stripped, and it makes it a way more effective tactic. But the strip does work on sentinels, or not sentinels, on Demolus. So that's 99%. And there's the full strip. And we can wait for the bubble. The cleanse, yeah. Oh, and if I go stand in it, wait for the next one. Yeah, see? It doesn't affect it. So it's a little nice. So I've been a Caliban enjoyer for a bit, and I'm starting to really like him. Um, but let's do the nature of corrosive armor stripping. Okay, so I'm gonna pull up because I'm gonna load in some Gokstad, or however you pronounce it, the exos. Gookstad. Alright, so according to the game, the exos have 1,000 base armor, and it's ferrite. So if you look at the weakness chart, how it gets, and how your IPS and your elements are going to affect each thing, it shows 3 positive to corrosive. And this is the main scaling of Grenier, is armor. The flesh, the health pool does go up, but it's mostly the armor. So we're going to pull up the wiki and see exactly what we're dealing with. If we go down to 1, which it won't let us, of course. Okay, here we go. 1,000 clone flesh, so it has 1,000 health. Ferrite armor is 1,000. Its damage reduction is 76 and change. But if you look at the health pool increase, the armor continues to go and the damage reduction keeps going up. But let's have it go up a lot. So we increased the value by 10 times, but the armor and the cloned flesh almost tripled. Let's see what it is again. Okay, so we went from 145,000, let's say 146 cloned flesh, to 461. Okay, so it's a little more than tripled. And the armor went up 6 times. So the armor reduction, the armor damage reduction, its effective damage reduction, is increasing way more effectively than the base health. And the health pool increase is what they nerfed recent, or I guess 2 years ago. So if you can deal with a Grineer unit's armor, you don't have to worry too much about the cloned flesh. Because there's just not that much there. So let's get our 190 value, because that's what we're going to be dealing with. Okay, so it's 2802. There is going to be a little bit of math today. Or 820.45. Okay. We can close the wiki. And we'll go back into game. And let's do math. Okay. So Caliban's 4 strips 99%. So I'm going to convert this into a decimal, and I'm going to multiply it by 0.01, because I'm removing 99%. I want to know what the 1% is. Okay, 200. That alone turns these guys into paper, because the level 1 armor is 1,000. So it's already 5 times weaker. Well, a little more. 5 times weaker than a level 1 exo, like what their base armor level is. Now also, we have corrosive projection, and all this stuff's multiplicative. Okay. So it's 18% for corrosive projection. So we want to know what's left. So you have to take 18% away from it. Now you can even either type in minus 18%, and it'll do the math. And it'll give you the 170, which maybe I should start doing instead of converting it to a decimal. So this is going to give me 170 armor. And even though technically it is considered expensive to mod this way, as the armor gets higher, okay, it becomes more effective to just continue stripping armor slowly. But you don't want to do like 5 sources of armor strip. But if you do and layer 3 or maybe 4 forms of armor strip on something, you're going to reduce it down to where it's paper, because there's only so many times you can reduce something 80% to where it's just garbage. Now with this, and I'm going to showcase the damage at 170, and then we'll talk about additional multipliers that will help you later. Okay, so we're using 99% from this and corrosive projection. That's what we've calculated so far. And we're going to use this Scourge Prime mainly for a headshot bullet attractor. Really don't want anything else on it, even though technically it does apply viral and corrosive. But that's the main thing, is the headshots. And on the weapon itself is a very standard build. Technically I could do Deadhead. I know that, but this is going to be so much more damage anyway. So crit chance, crit damage, multi-shot, galvanized shot, which, remember, the bonus, the status chance is always active, but the conditional bonus goes up to 80%, or sorry, this is a pistol, so it's better. So it goes up to 120%, and this is part of the reason why this build works. It's 120% times the number of statuses that are on the weapon. And then whatever that value is gets added to your other base damage multipliers, which in this case is secondary merciless. So this is where our main raw damage is. Now the benefit of this is even though bullet hose weapons are generally weaker per shot, one of the characteristics of them is just because you're shooting such a high volume of bullets, impact, puncture, slash, heat, and corrosive are all going to proc eventually, because I have 4 base multi-shot. The weapon innately has 2 multi-shot because it's 2 pistols, right? So I'm going to get the benefit of all of these together. So hold on. So, okay, I will write this down. 170.72. Okay. So just from the IPS on here, and with galvanized shot at 120, times 6, this is my base damage that gets added to Merciless, which is 360. Okay. So that's how this interacts. So my base damage is 1080, which is 5 times higher than a Hornet Strike. And this is one of the characteristics of a bullet hose weapon, is there's benefits to applying multiple statuses, or having just a bunch of garbage on your weapon, because it's going to increase your raw damage so much. So even though this is 161, you would do 161 plus 1080%. So this number is actually 1738 when everything's stacked up properly. That's not bad. Okay. That's what this number actually is when you're hitting an enemy that has 6 stacks on it. So that's where the multipliers come from. This is a massive multiplier. So anyway, small rant on that. That's where that damage comes from. And this is just a characteristic of bullet hose weapons, where they sometimes can outperform slower, harder hitting weapons, and then they'll fire faster. Now, if there's additional multipliers, like say a sniper rifle or something, that's different. So, okay, let's see what the damage is, and then we'll explain the interaction about... Alright, so the 4 has a slight grouping effect. It pulls them slightly. Started out with like 5k. Now we're at 11k, 13, 10, 31, 33, 33, 33, 45. I saw 53. Okay, 52, 53. It looks like we're stacked up. So how did we get to that? There's another thing that needs to be considered. And I'm going to skip this portion of the math. I know some of you guys really like math, but the long and the short of it is Warframe cheats on how this number is calculated. It gives you this number. It always calculates this number, and it does get rounded. But the IPS distribution affects what your raw damage is. And I'm not even going to bother pulling up the wiki. I had to figure this out and learn it. But it divides this distribution into 16. And the jargon that they call it is a quanta. It's whatever. That's just what they call it, is a quanta. So your damage gets divided up into 16 as evenly as possible. And then with corrosive... Where's my calculator at? Okay, so it will figure out roughly, based on percentage. So 1 divided by 16 is 6.25. By the way, if you ever have noticed, this number seems to pop up occasionally. Not super often, but I wanted to comment on it. But I'm pretty sure this showed up when I was breaking down the Karas versus the Nami Skylas. A lot of the numbers are multiplicative of this because it's the base quanta and it evens these out. So if your numbers are off slightly, try to see if whatever your number is multiple of this 6.25%, because this is the decimal version. But this might be what's altering your damage a bit. is because it quantizes this. So then we'll do 6 1/4 times 161.7. Okay, so our damage is divided by 10. So if it's not, I think it needs to be 5 for it to even be considered. But if you noticed with my build, multi-shot gets put into account. Okay, so hold on. We're going to divide this by 4 just to make this super easy. 4.2 is the multi-shot. Okay, boom, 2.4. Okay. So slash would get its own quanta. Puncture would potentially get rounded down to 1. Impact would get 1. I guess I'm going to talk about it. Give me a second. I'm getting... hold on. I need a new... Okay, so the quanta is 2.4. I'm sorry, this is going to drag it out. Okay. So we have 16. Actually, an easy way to do this. Hold on. Okay, so we're going to do 16. Okay, so we have impact. We have puncture. Slash gets only 1. Alright, so 2.4. I come down here. 2.4. Okay. So 12 divided by 2.4 is 5. Cool. So corrosive. Gotta type it once. Cool. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Cool. And then we'll do heat. It's over 6. Okay, so heat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Cool. Okay, so now the issue is this is generally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Corrosive is exact. So there is a chance that impact counts twice. And this is what your damage, when Warframe calculates it, this is how it's breaking up your damage. And it's considering it and reducing and buffing everything. Now, this long-ass-winded explanation. Okay. Let me go back to the corrosive thing. Oh, God. How do you... Oh, I need to put exo. Okay, so we have this. This is the super sweaty explanation. Okay, so for ferrite, these bonuses. So we have +2 on ferrite, +2, and +3 on corrosive. So we are now plus, 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 plus. And I'm going to do this one time. Okay, so puncture is +2. Okay, let's see. I wish I could color these. Slash is minus. Impact doesn't care on armor. There's no bonuses to armor, even though there is the armor shred. Impact, okay. So for your alpha damage against armor, this is what the game is doing in terms of the 2.4. So this is what our quanta is. And it increases it here. So what it will do is it will calculate the damage reduction of the 172 armor based on 16 separate instances of damage. And it will buff them. So if you have 172 armor, and we'll go back to the calculator, and I'm not going to do this because this is so many layers of stuff. Thank God a computer does it. So 172 and change, whatever that was. Sorry, it was 170. 170.72. Okay, I did put it down somewhere. And it is, so for this section of math, what the game is going to do is it's going to then ignore 75% of what this damage is, this 2.4 damage is getting reduced by 42 is going to be the effective armor against this enemy. Okay, so this section of damage only deals with 42 armor. And then it will get multiplied. Then it'll get bonus 75%. For your 2.4. And then this will get flat multiplied by the 1080 from galvanized shot and merciless. Okay. So we're just going to multiply this. And for this one, we'll do the math. So it's 170.70. Hold on. 0.72. And then we're going to multiply it by 0.05. Okay. And gets plus 50 damage. Right? And this one actually gets double-edged against it. So it's 170.72 times, this time it deals with more armor, 1.25. So this is how much this gets reduced by. Copy. Okay, what do I do? Okay, here we go. And it gets minus 25% damage. Okay? Because we're still dealing with ferrite armor. Okay? So these are the multipliers that apply to ferrite. Now here's the thing, is on top of this, and this is why I don't want to do the full calculation, this is just the armor. Below this, the same quanta gets applied to the health also, which has its own multipliers. And then what is it? You do 300 over 1 minus the armor times 1 over the health. Hold on, I can look. I'm literally on the wiki right now. Hold on. I'm gonna come up with that. Damage. It's this formula. Okay. And this is just for armor. And then you have add your burst time. Where's the instance? It's been a minute since I've looked at this. Okay, but it gets both the armor and the health. That's the main thing to take away from this. The armor and the health applies to the damage, but the armor reduces the damage first, or buffs it in this case. And whatever's left over, that's what the health has to play with. So the point of this build is to reduce the armor as much as possible. It's literally less than a level 1 exo. So it gets buffed as much as possible while retaining the damage bonuses. So the divisor, say if you were to do like 10 divided by 100, right? That's 1/10. But if you were to then do 10 damage divided by a tenth of an armor, now all of a sudden your damage goes up, and then you have the bonuses on the health, which is viral in this case, and heat, which is why I have this on here. So I'm not going to do the entire equation. I would be here for an hour, but your computer basically does this instantaneously. But this is why occasionally your damage seems to be wonky if you're attempting to figure out the math. Is there's the quanta. So each of these have their own bonus, and it applies, both of them apply, but in most circumstances, the armor is 1,000%. Obviously, that's hyperbolic, but it is significantly more impactful on your damage to just prime with viral and just deal damage with corrosive. So this is what's going on more or less when you're, and what this build specifically is buffing. And I'll get rid of that, and I'll stop talking about math. I like the math. But that's what's going on here, and why the damage is so high. Is because I've shredded the health down to a fraction of what it is. And let's see, hold on, we'll do the math one more time on what the armor is. Ooh, because the scaling is important. So what was it? 2820 time. Oh, hold on. Let's do the subtraction. Okay, so 2820 minus 99%. Okay, we got that. And then you do minus 18%. Okay. And now we'll take it, like, let's say enemies get super high, right? Level cap. We would then figure out the base armor, or the scaled armor at that level. But for this, let's say we actually get, for whatever reason, it's not going to happen, we get 10 stacks of corrosive on here. Okay? And then we have to subtract the 50% from heat. Now it's 17. Okay? So that's what the corrosive portion is having to go through. So that's why the damage is so high, is even though corrosive is the slightly weaker element, what is it, 3 to 2 is the ratio? It's enough that it boosts the damage to hell and back. And you can see where the heat proc comes in, right? Where the shred has helped so much that I'm still getting like 40k heat ticks, which isn't insane, but for running around a star chart, a 40k heat tick will kill something. So this is where the alpha damage is coming from, why we're doing 50k on a shot, and then it's getting multiplied by a headshot. I can go kill stuff with like body shots, but that's the main factor, right? So the other thing that we can do is, this is actually a vulnerability, right? Oh, that doesn't work, does it? Nope. It's got to drop them. But this is a damage vulnerability thing, so it increases the damage even if you have more if you have. Okay, got it. Now our damage is over 50. Oh, we got a 71. Alright, now let's do... Oh, that guy died. Looks like 15s. Okay, 16s. Got 20s. And those aren't headshots that time. That's where the additional damage is coming from. It's the multiplier on corrosive. That's where all of our damage is coming from. Just to explain the math behind it. So now, there's no headshot multiplier being forced from the Scourge. Getting 17s, 13s, 10Ks. 15s and 20s. It's still good damage. Oh, there's one guy. Thoroughness. There we go. But this is basically how you would want to multiply your corrosive damage. Is you would want to get a corrosive projection. You would want some sort of armor strip. Caliban is awesome for it. Banshee also has a augment mod that strips armor as well. Obviously Ash is the go-to for like Demolist runs because you can pick what enemy has it. But like stacking corrosive projections gets you pretty far actually. What's that actually? I forget whether they stack multiplicatively or additively. So what would it be? 18 times 2 is 36. Two of them together would give you 72% armor shred. And then all of your calculations would shred multiplicatively from there. At high levels, enemies have incredibly high armor for Grineer. So the more shred, the easier the run is. You know what I mean? But that's the main philosophy behind the build, to explain the armor, or like what's actually going on. Obviously, when I'm building, what I was thinking is corrosive and heat go incredibly well with each other. I don't need viral because the panzer is giving me viral. So I went with a shred element, so corrosive strips armor. And I went with an element that infinitely scales the more I shoot something. So say I start running up against stuff that's pretty tanky and I'm not shredding it. Heat will just continue to tick, and it will at least allow me, when I'm doing like a survival or something, I will then get a slow barrier where I can start to feel that I'm not killing something so quickly. But I'll still be able to slowly get past that and maybe get to like a rotation C or something like that. So I like this combination. Viral heat can be very potent as well, but with the advent of the Panzer, I just don't see much use for having viral on the melee when you could run 60/60s, guarantee the 10 stacks through bullet hose, just through chance, and then get primed heated charge for scaling, which would then strip 50% of the remaining armor. So this is how it's done. This is a talk about the math. I don't know, maybe one day I'll do like the full strip of how to calculate a single instance of damage. I did it once, like a couple years ago, just out of curiosity to see what the new scaling was on the health. And the first time doing it by hand, I think it legitimately took me 25 minutes to calculate like a single instance of damage to see what all the multipliers are. But that's the philosophy behind it. If you're gonna do like a combo element, like 3 element mods, and this applies to melee weapons also. 60/60 corrosive, with a big heat. Obviously, I can get away with this on a pistol because of primed heated charge. So what you would do is you would do a 90 heat mod and lower the rank of your corrosive 60/60s down to where they don't overwhelm it. So you would knock it down to like dual 30s or something. I think 2 30s. So 2 rank 1s would be pretty good. So you still get the benefit of the additional corrosive damage. But anyway, thank you for listening to my talk. I hope for those that actually listened all the way through, I hope this is helpful. I appreciate you guys watching. If you've watched all the way through, have a blessed day.